Chatty with Queeenaay. The wait is finally over, and today we're going to be discussing very interesting but pressing issues. And I have with me very wonderful guests, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So I have...
My name is Clement a geographer with specialty in ecology and nature management, and I'm a Ghanaian.
Okay.
And my name is Tafaza Mumbire from Zimbabwe, and I'm your doctor in the making.
Yes. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about depression and suicide. And there was this topic, very pressing. I read on Twitter, and a guy posted, he tweeted actually that his girlfriend committed suicide. And the first thing I thought of when I read that was, I mean, this is not his friend or just like a classmate or any other person, you understand?
Yeah.
This is actually his girlfriend. And it's sad that, you know, we are so close to people yet we are far, you understand?
Yeah.
Like, we are, and her mom, her dad, I'm sure she had like relatives, and from other sources, I heard part of the reasons for her committing suicide was that her mom called her a witch or something. I don't know how authentic that is, so I don't want to get into that. But then, you know, the main thing that that actually pressed on my heart was the fact that her boyfriend, I mean, like, he was close enough with her, but I don't think he actually could stop her from committing suicide. And before we even get into that, I want you guys to just tell me anything you know about, you know, the difference between, you know, being depressed and just being sad, like the difference between depression and suicide. Yeah.
Well,
any of you can start.
That's interesting actually. You know, I'm coming from the geographical point of view.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think depression is the broader topic, and sadness is a subset of depression.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a subset of depression. So I think from my point of view, I think later we'll hear from the doctors. Yeah, the doctor's point of view. Yeah, but from my point of view, I think depression is a broader topic, and sadness is a subset of depression. And a long experience of sadness might lead to depression.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you'd say that sadness is part of the causes of depression.
I think it's the first stage.
It's the first stage actually.
If you don't deal with your sadness while, and depending on the depth of the matter that's leading to the sadness, it can lead into depression. Although sometimes depression can be something you're unaware of. You're unaware of, but with sadness you're usually aware of what it is that's putting you in that state of sadness. But when you're depressed, you don't know at times that something is unconsciously affecting you.
Yeah.
That's very true. It's a factor to consider.
Okay, so you can say that anxiety, sadness, they are all like just causes, like if you don't deal with those things, you find yourself getting depressed.
Exactly.
Yeah, and do you think that like being depressed can lead you or cause you to do certain things that being sad and being anxious won't lead you to do?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't think there's any way sadness could lead you to drinking and smoking or doing the things you would never imagine yourself to do. Whereas if you're depressed, you don't have a route of escaping. So your best way to escape is through doing certain things that will at least maybe make you forget about the depression you're going through, or maybe perhaps suppress the pain that you're feeling.
Yeah, that's very true.
And
And
means of expressing.
when someone is depressed, the person has a low self-esteem, and there is little or no contact. We should be very stressful here. Little or no contact with human activities. You get it? So basically, when someone is depressed, the person feels so segregated from the society. And I listened to an interview in Ghana with Papi Kojo. He's one of the top musicians in Ghana, and he was actually sharing his story about depression. And in his case, you know, he dropped a hit single with Mr. Easy and Patapa in Ghana, and it was a time for him to go and perform like for shows and stuff that would really earn him so much money. But he saw no reason why he should go into the public domain and be performing. You get it? So in his situation, he felt so segregated, and he resorted to drinking and drugs. Yeah, it was very bad. It was so bad. it was very bad a situation. Yeah.
And it often happens that you usually don't have a root, like a person to even speak to about your depression, because you don't know how they will take it. Because I'm sure, like you're saying about this artist, it wouldn't have made sense to the people around him that I do not feel the need to perform. That's why he resorted to just dealing with it through alcohol and drugs. That's the best way he could have dealt with it, because no one would have understood him around. And that also like depends on how close he was to those people around.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have someone close that is close to you, someone you can trust to not judge you when you're open, that's what leads people to usually just dwell on other things.
Yeah.
So would you say that, again, back to the tweet I was talking about, you know, just as you said, he might not have found someone close enough. So would you say in the case of the boyfriend and the girlfriend committing suicide, would you say that most of us, you know, we claim to be there for people, but we actually do not show that we are there enough for them? And like we say, oh, I'm here for you, but then when they call, it's as if we are busy, or call me later, or like we find ourselves watching movies and would prefer watching the movie over listening to what, you know, someone we claim to care about wants to tell us, you understand? And sometimes to all, you know, I feel like when you want to, no depressed person is going to come to you again unless you are on a level of, you know, closeness. I feel like when I see Clement and he's depressed and I say, oh, how are you, Clement? He's not going to say, I'm depressed. You understand? He's going to, and most depressed people, I always say most depressed people have smiley faces. Like, and they're the ones who joke the most in public. So you would find that, like, everyone thinks they are fine, but then when they find themselves alone, they find themselves, you know, in a whole different state of depression, and like there's no one to reach out to because everyone actually comes to them and there's no one to actually reach out to. So would you say that in helping to, you know, deal with this whole depression thing, we should be more open about how we actually feel? But then how are you going to tell people, like, I'm actually not fine, like when you're going through depression?
No, I think it's a really difficult way to go around it because we are different. You know, there are extroverted people, there are introverted people. There are people who grew up in families where you have to do it on your own. That's just how it was. And however, there are people who grew up in families where you can express yourself. You can talk about what it is that's bothering you. So I think it comes down to the truth of the personality of the person who's going through that depression. And it all comes down to that because you can be depressed and I show concern and I genuinely want to know, but because you grew up dealing with it by yourself, it's going to take time before you can finally come out about it. I think personality definitely determines how best a person deals with their depression.
Yeah,
I would like to think so.
In reference to the tweet you saw, I think the 21st century relationship has more to do with sex. Yeah. Has more to do with sex
than companionship.
That sense of companionship is lost. You know, there is a saying that when marriage collapses, it's because of lack of friendship, not because of lack of love. Yeah. So I think the very first stage of any relation, this is also an advice to our youth out there. The very first stage of relationship should be building of a tight bond, tight friendship. Because it will be very, very difficult for situations whereby there will be a high level of friendship between a guy and a girl, and the lady or the guy will feel kind of ashamed to speak to each other about certain issues. You get it? So I think, the very first level of relationship in this 21st century, that is my point of view actually, and I think if we should go by it, I think it will be a step in the right direction. Yeah, because if, in the lady's case, if she was very, very open to the boyfriend, I don't think this issue would have happened, or if there was that high bond of friendship between both of them, I think it would be quite comfortable for them to speak to each other concerning such issues.
That's true. And it's really sad because this is your partner. You would expect them to be able to tell if anything is wrong.
Exactly.
Which is back to the point of friendship in a relationship.
Exactly.
It's really sad for
Exactly. Would you say that for our generation, social media has a very, very, you know, it has a big part in people getting depressed? Like, on a daily basis. Like I was going through the internet, right, and it said like over 300 million people across the globe suffer from depression, and I was like, not 100, not 200, not even 1,000, but 300 million people, and I'll just assume that most of them are of our age, they are youth. And would you say that social media, has a part to play in this?
Before I touch on this issue, I would like to say this. At every stage in our life, there is some level of depression. Like the point I'm trying to establish is that as we are humans, we are prone to depression. But it depends on you. It depends on how you handle it. You get it? And let's go back to the issue of social media. Our youth of today are so pressured by stuff they see on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram.
Sure.
Yeah, and one of the major pressures come from the usage of iPhones.
No, true. That is very...
Yeah, iPhones actually. Yeah. And it's really on a micro level, this whole product, this product alone really gives so much depression, to the youth. Yeah, and it's social media is a place where people flaunt. People behave not how they are, but they try to fake. And me as Clement, I'll never feel pressured whenever I see something on social media. Never. No. Why should I?
Because you built...
No, maybe. And one of my strengths as Clement as I am is my psychology. I have a very high psychology. I have a very strong psychology, and I can never feel pressured. I can never feel depressed by something I see on social media, flaunting their Lamborghinis and their Ferraris. No, come on. That's my personal life. So I shouldn't feel pressured. I don't own everything in this world, but I own my life. It's mine.
Sure.
It's mine. So I determine the pattern. I determine the direction that we should go on. Yeah. So that is one of the problems of our youth of today in connection with social media and depression. Yeah.
I think it comes down to self-contentment. If you're not content with yourself, if you're not content with who you are, you're going to be easily affected by what you find on social media. And people, not everyone who's flaunting about the Lamborghinis and everything actually has this stuff.
Exactly.
Is actually happy. They're taking pictures and they're putting this facade that I'm happy, I'm content, I've got it all, but they are messed up. There are people who live in big houses, but they are depressed.
Exactly.
They are depressed. So it's a matter of, if you are content with yourself, you can read beyond seeing a picture, because there's more to a picture than there is that you actually see.
Exactly.
But not so many people nowadays have a backbone, are able to even read between the lines and be like, is this really what it is that is going on? Many people are not content with themselves. And you find, I actually had a friend who was actually on the roll of, she's not going to post a picture until she takes the perfect picture.
Yeah.
She would go to certain places to take pictures, because the places in which she is in are not okay, are not appropriate for Instagram to be seen, are not appropriate for people on Facebook to be seen. And that shows a level of wanting to impress, wanting to keep up with the appearances, but not being content with yourself. Because if you're content, why do you need to travel across the city to take a picture? Why do you need to do so? Self-contentment, I think that's the foundation of being able to accept yourself. Knowing who you are at times can really avoid the problems of depression. Knowing who you are.
And exactly as you said, being content. But there's a difference between, I understand those who are trying to create a brand on social media because they want to make it like another source of living. So you have to take pictures as like you have to dress a certain way. You want to be maybe a fashion icon, so you have to take pictures at particular places. But then people don't understand that these people are taking these pictures because they have something in mind that they're planning on doing with their IG page. But then you see them and you're like, yo, this person is dressed so nice. Some people even get sponsored,
Yeah, it's true.
Just like I give you clothes to wear for me to promote the brand, you understand? But you don't know how these people get these things.
Exactly.
That girls who would go to the extent of having sex with men as old as their parents because they just want, as you said, an iPhone.
Yeah, iPhone,
and
X-Max.
Exactly. And keeping up with trends, like they want to keep up with the trend. Yes, I'm using the latest iPhone, I'm using the latest car, I'm using the latest. But I don't think these are the things that actually bring happiness. Because you can have all these things. There are very rich people that have ended up, you know, dying, committing suicide. Which should bring us to the next topic, suicide. Welcome back from the short break. We are about to discuss about suicide, and I want to actually know when depression can get to the stage where someone would want to commit suicide.
Very interesting, though. You know, for depression, it has levels. It has levels of depression. Like in its own self, it has levels, and it starts from the early stage where a person starts to segregate himself or herself from the entire society, and it gets to stages where he or she will start even yearning and fighting with close people. You know, when it gets to this extent, you know, it's getting serious, and from this stage, they will resort to alcohol. They will resort to drugs. Okay, so when this stage of drugs continues for a very long time, the person loses the self-esteem. So he begins to ask himself this question: why am I even on this earth? For what importance? Questioning your living. And when it gets to this extent, it's very, very dangerous. It's very dangerous to the extent that the person can even kill you, can harm you, even a relative or a loved one. The person can harm you or even harm him or herself. So when it gets to this point, you know, it's very dangerous.
So how would you actually know that a person is at this point? Is it when you see them taking the drugs or you see them drinking?
That's the problem, and it's very sad because in some instances people will even start taking drugs even at the early stages. That is very so. Depression as a term is something that is so it's very deep. It's very deep, and I think if we see a friend or a relative going through that sort of thing, one thing that we can do to help is to constantly communicate with that person. You know, it will get to points where they will start segregating themselves and start yelling and fighting even people. But you should make it constant. Seriously, you wouldn't spot that this is exactly a point where the person can commit suicide. Depression is so serious, my dear sweet. It's so serious. So I think when it gets to this one, when you get to know that a friend or a relative is going through depression, you should start getting closer to the person.
We should reach out.
We should reach out
and constantly.
I think the only problem that's there at times is that people do react in a very adverse manner when they are now seriously depressed. But at times as well, there are suicides you never expected. Because this person was okay throughout. You know, there are some people who won't. People like with different, because suicide is not only a result of depression. People who are mentally disturbed, people who want to be in control of their own lives, so that they feel that suicide is something they are in control of. Then there are people who are depressed, like he is saying.
And sorry to cut you, but you know, depression it can be clinical and it can be it's actually like a mental illness, right? So with that clinical aspect, it's better and it's best advised to go for help, like clinical help, because there are drugs that can help curb depression or even take you out of that depressive state. But in situations where it's just like an emotion, more than an emotion, like, and you know, you're engulfed in that situation, like, how are you, and as you said, like, everyone deals with depression differently, you understand? So I feel like with something that I might not get so depressed with, you might get to another level of depression with that same thing.
Exactly.
It's relative.
Like very small things can cause a person to be depressed. Like being indecisive can lead to depression at times. But for me, I have a very fast way of
even stress can cause depression. Even stress.
Depression. Even family matters can lead to depression. Some people can shut off family issues and move on from life with whatever is going on, but someone else will be affected. So I think half the case actually when we have suicidal cases, it's unexpected. Like, I didn't know she was going through this. I didn't know she wanted to kill herself. We used to, then that's when people start saying, oh yeah, but she was now like, oh, but he was now like, oh yeah.
I spoke to him 5 minutes ago.
You know, exactly. Like, only when, until they are gone, that's when people start to pay attention to detail. You know, because especially when they're about to go, that's when they, some people, like I had a friend who became quiet and she eventually told me, I'm suicidal. This is how I'm feeling. I am suicidal because I don't know what to do. You know, like what you were saying, they lose all hope. They feel like, what's the purpose of being alive anyway? You know, until I had to speak to her and find out what was going on. Speaking is what was therapeutic for her. It's what saved her life, literally. But very few people come out of their shells to finally talk about what's the issue before they can save themselves.
And Taffy, you know that in the case of this musician in Ghana, he went to Instagram to write, I want to commit suicide.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm sure people laughed about it.
Yeah, people laughed. But some relatives really called him and some friends really reached out to him. So that is the stage. No, you see, if he hadn't posted that or if he hadn't tweeted, maybe the worst might have happened in the next 5 or 10 minutes. But I know when he tweeted that information, I knew maybe in the shortest possible time people reached out to him, and it helped. Actually, it helped. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And as you said, contentment is very, very important
Exactly.
because, you know, some people just assume that when you have everything in life, there's no way you're going to be depressed. But look at the example you just gave. This
he's
is
a superstar.
Who is
he is a German. You know, he's an Italian also. Yeah, Papico Joe is an Italian. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And he's actually someone who is actually.
He's comfortable.
Yeah. He has money. Obviously.
He has money. He has fame. He has whatever you can think of all around him.
And so you would ask yourself, why would such a person want to commit suicide?
Exactly.
You understand? And you know, having a low self-esteem, everything comes like with the whole depressive state. It means you are feeling inferior to other people, and you're like, but this guy has everything. Why would he feel inferior to someone else? So unless you are happy with yourself, you're content with yourself at any stage of your life, there's no way, even when you get every other thing, you're still going to find happiness.
Yeah, and there is one thing that I would take this opportunity to bring it out, most especially to us foreigners living in the diasporas, the European countries, the Americas, and all these foreign countries. You know, living in a foreign land, if you don't really take care, you're going to be depressed by so many things. By so many things. Seriously, you know, living conditions can make you depressed. Stress can make you, school activities, work and stuff cannot make you so depressed. So I think it's a nice platform to reach out to our brothers and sisters living in the diaspora. That they should be very vigilant in every aspect of their life. They should be aware of depression. They should just be aware that depression exists, but they should know how to deal with it.
Exactly. And in as much as you would want to, you know, separate yourself from everybody, you should also know it's your life you're talking about. Like, I mean, I won't even lie. When I got here, I've been depressed on countless occasions. But you know, as you said, my way of dealing with it was to shut everyone out. You understand? So you're like, but this isn't me. You can ask some of my friends. They got to a point where I didn't want to talk to anyone.
I think it's true. Yeah, I think it's true.
I didn't want to talk to anyone. I would not, like, you just not find the queen, because I won't be there. Like, that was how I was dealing with it. I'll cry every night and go to school the next day, and no one would know, no one would reach out to them. Maybe I was just moody, but like, I knew what I was going through, and I didn't even know the cause of the depression. You understand? I was just depressed until one day I was like, yo, like, you have to get out of this state, because it was affecting me academically. I wasn't going to class. You understand? And I had to reach out to one of my friends, and like she came, we went out, we decided to plan a girls' night, something, just something to get your mind and remind yourself of why you are even alive, like who you are, the people who are going to miss you if you decide to kill yourself. You understand? And also, on the other hand, when you find out that your friend is, it's no longer herself, like she's, she's shutting you out, she's all of a sudden, she's, quiet. I feel like, I mean, if you're really her friend or you're really someone who cares enough, in as much as she's shutting you out, you should still keep pushing and constantly checking up on her, like to actually show that you care. You know, because it was at that point that I got to know that no, a lot of people weren't really my friends, because just, you know, just by shutting them out, they went away. Like, you know, they didn't reach out enough, like as constant as I wanted them to reach out to me. Like, they just gave up, and you know, I had to find myself, you understand. And I thank God I wasn't suicidal, but like, I mean, and a lot of people are going through this. Even their parents will just give up on them, like, you, hey, Cecilia, sorry, I was speaking to you, like, she's turned into something else, like, just leave her alone. But you don't know what your child is actually going through, why she's being quiet. And I feel like we should reach out more, basically.
I think it's advice, not only to the people who go overseas when they want to, but then I think even to students who are just going to varsity in general, know who you are before you go there, and be very particular about who you surround yourself with. Because at times you're around people who don't really have genuine care or genuine concern for your well-being. That's why you get into a state of depression and no one notices. And then next thing you're gone and it's like, we didn't know. It's really important. Like, your happiness is everything, and you're responsible for your happiness above all else. Like, you're responsible for your happiness at the end of the day, because you get to choose who am I hanging out with, who am I spending time with.
Exactly. And that's going to say you're responsible for your life.
For your life, and no one can make you feel inferior without your consent.
Exactly.
So, you know, me as Clement, I always try to live my life according to my conscience and my psychology. I never get pressured or feel downplayed by people's views about me. Never. Maybe that is one gift that God has given. Though at a point in time, at a point in my life, I was nearly depressed, but I really got myself back on track. I was nearly depressed. I spoke to one lady in Nigeria about it. She's very mature. Big shout outs to Farah. Thank you so much for your advice. And she really, at the point I asked her, Farah, what is depression? So she really got time and really told me true. And she was calling me like from time to time. So at the point, as I said, I have a very strong psychology. So I just had to psych myself up and just put myself back on track. So the point I'm trying to establish is that as individuals, as humans, we are all prone to depression. Yes. But it depends on how you handle it.
Yes. Okay, so this is where we're going to wrap up. Thank you guys so much for staying with us, and I actually hope this little convo we had, conversation, helped you in diverse ways. And if you're suffering with depression in any way, please find help, because at the end of the day, you own your life. Your life is in your hands. I mean, God's hands, but like, you own your happiness, you own your life, and you have to make sure you are living to fulfill your purpose. So reach out to someone, and make sure you also reach out to another person who needs help. Thank you for watching. It's Life with Queeenaay.